Hey, what is going on, YouTube? Aaron here. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. And guys, after yesterday's video, I thought this replay was a perfect kind of follow-up video for a few reasons. Number one, it kind of reiterates what I was talking about in yesterday's video. And number two, it's a great teachable game. And I guess a few people don't watch my videos and then watched yesterday's videos because I have been explaining things and teaching the core principles of this game for the better part of 2.5 years now. And more recently, we've been doing a lot, better in terms of voiceovers. A little disclaimer, as you guys can see right now, the video is frame rating a little bit. My computer was overheating, but we do fix that issue later in the stream, about 2 to 3 minutes. So bear with me for this opening, 2 to 3 minutes here, but it does get better. Now to the teachable moments. You guys can see that I am in the Baltimore, my most played ship, and honestly one of my favorite classes, the American Heavy Cruisers. You guys know I am pretty much an expert in. And one of the first tips I have for you in terms of cruiser play is to utilize island cover, which is exactly what we're doing here. We have this island blocking off all of the shots coming in from the right. As you can see very shortly, a few of those battleships do pop up, and if they have kind of extended range, they would be able to lob us. So utilizing island cover, despite what the very alpha manly men want to say, is 100% a winning strategy in a cruiser. But you will notice we are very close to the cap. We do not have full radar coverage, but you need to assess the situation. If all those ships in the middle were to push us, it is not smart to be very aggressively forward, as our hood, you can see, has already lost half of his health. In the meantime, we actually also absolutely blasted that Tiger who was aggressively pushing in. Again, it's funny when I'm talking about these things and all of the principles are applied in the game. There's no reason for this hood to be as aggressive as he is, as well as that Tiger. And what can you learn from that? The people and the ships who aggressively push in are shot first. Also, you will see that we can, assess the situation utilizing overview camera and looking at our mini map. That the triple fail division, and what I mean by a fail division is there was 2 Tier 7 battleships and a Tier 6 New Orleans. Now, it didn't work out to where that this game was he got put into a Tier 8 lobby, but that is possible. So, a message to anyone who is not trying to meme. Don't fail division, right? A Tier 6 New Orleans is heavily outmatched against pretty much all ships not in Tier 6. It's not weak, but it's a very difficult ship to play correctly. And here we can see this hood saying good game as he sits broadside in the cap in the first 3 minutes. Brother, you don't have to win the game in the first 2 minutes. I don't understand. But now we are moving on to another one of your roles in a radar cruiser especially, but all cruisers really, and that is to go after destroyers. Now, certain cruisers such as the Henry, a few of the other Japanese cruisers are not pure destroyer hunters due to their lack of radar and difficulty in tight situations. They are better played at medium range. But when you see a destroyer and you're at a cruiser, you should be shooting at it 95% of the time. But here our Friesland actually did a good job. He unfortunately sat broadside and the Samangi had a good shot on him. If I had one piece of advice to the Friesland, it would have been just to back up or retreat a little bit. He did a good job getting into the cap and then shooting after that, shooting at the enemy Friesland. But he's dead now, right? So it serves him no purpose. He did get the trade. Again, we frame rated a little bit and missed that shot. So that is one kill we potentially missed, but he is now no longer able to influence the game. A huge pro tip for destroyer players is you have to live as long as you can. If you have to concede the cap in the first 2 to 3 minutes, and this is where someone on stream tells me that we're frame rating pretty bad, so I do go get an ice pack to cool down my computer, but talking about the principles of being better and trying to win, if you're in a destroyer, you have to live past the 7-minute mark. If you're not doing that as a destroyer, you're not helping your team for the most part. Now, if you can go in the Kleber and let's say take out a Shima, another cruiser, and then the third battleship, sure, you may influence the game. But the longer you're alive, the more spots you can provide, the more caps you can get. And the longer a game goes on, the more deadly a destroyer player is. A few people in yesterday's video, and this is just a little bit off topic as we're sitting here, getting this cap and cooling down my computer. People were like, well, why don't the CCs, do educational videos? I have done those for the better part of 2.5 years. So I don't know if those people are just new to the channel or just don't pay attention or just don't watch. But in pretty much every video, going back to my very first video, I explain what is going on in my head. And that doesn't make it 100% correct. But as somebody with a 70+% win rate and a very high average XP, it makes more sense to listen to the advice than to not. And I don't like to bring up my stats too often because I have played in divisions and whatever, argument you guys want to come up with. But at the end of the day, somebody who is winning is doing something correctly. So that is why sometimes it's just like, it's like we talked about in other videos. It's always the people at the bottom of the leaderboard screaming the loudest when I am simply here explaining things. But regardless of that, getting back to the principles of this game, our Atlantico and the 3 battleships or 2 battleships that all spawned in the middle and the Atlantico, which spawned at sea, have moved their way over to this side. For what reason, I don't know. If you just look at the minimap and you look at the little, pentagonal and triangular shapes on the minimap, that will tell you where you need to go. But most battleship players see a circle and they just, they go right towards it. They have no concept of angling, positioning, crossfires, etc. So as a player who understands the game, as most of you do a little bit better, what we're doing right now is we're going back to that failed position, right? We don't know, if you look at the minimap here, and I'll try and blow it up for the replay, we don't know whether those cruisers are coming onto the backside of A or B there, or whether they're pushing through as well. On top of that, there's a little bit of island cover here, and we don't want to be with our other battleships, right? Now, we are going to be with this Atlantico, but you can see that the Bismarck and the Massachusetts in the failed division are going to end up going through the middle of the map. And what that's going to do is that's going to draw the battleship fire from the middle, as you can see from this Veneto here, towards them. And what that's going to allow us to do is get the crossfire. On top of that, it's going to allow us to, potentially, negate some of the damage, the incoming damage that would be taken. So here I'm looking at this island position, and that is when you can see, based on our twist and track here, that this mines is out here. So what I'm going to do is just get a further position. Now, we took an initial salvo here and we were not detected, so that tells us there are no ships further out within our gun range. But what we're going to do is wait just a moment here until we see that both the Missouri and the Veneto are in the middle of the map. And as soon as we complete, most of our turn, so we're pretty much angled away from those battleships, that is when we will shoot again. A lot of people like to go guns hot the entire time, and that is just not the correct play. Here, though, our Atlantico does a good job after he did abandon the flank that is now fallen of getting the secondary close quarters expert on that mines. So, pro tip to that Atlantico, if you would have stayed on your side, we probably would have won this game in a little bit better fashion, but thank you for, abandoning your flank because it allowed me to get a replay and talk about a few teachable moments. But just as we had talked about earlier, those 2 battleships were in the middle, and you can see that our 2 battleships are kind of just now engaged in the most boring fight in all of Legends, the Bow Tank Fest. Both the Missouri and the Veneto are trying to angle against them. And what we're doing here is getting out and getting the crossfire. Now, this is a little bit of a risky turn, but if you guys have noticed, we are running Einstein, which does have the intuitive, or one of the perks that tells you when you are spotted. So we're kind of gaining a little bit of distance here, as well as looking at that icon. We are not targeted by any ships, so we are safe to make this maneuver. Now, if the Missouri holds his shot and then targets us all of a sudden in the middle of this turn, well, we're just in trouble. But he is probably more focused on the 2 ships in the middle. So what we're going to do is make a little half turn here and be prepared to angle against this Veneto, as the Veneto only has 15-inch guns, and we do have 27mm plating, meaning we can bow tank his guns. On top of that, we are also supporting our team and pushing ourselves further towards A and further towards those islands to the west here, towards the opposite side or towards the A cap. And that's going to allow us to get a crossfire on the Missouri. You can see that our ships in the middle are kind of low health if they have, put themselves in a crossfire. That Amagi that was on our flank did the right thing and retreated back, and he has now got those guys in a little bit of a crossfire. Here, our New Orleans gets insanely lucky, sitting broadside to a Missouri. Anytime you're in a cruiser, you almost never want to be broadside unless you're at very, very close ranges, in which case you might get overpenned. But angling, for the most part, is usually the better play. And here, exactly what we were talking about, we now have this Missouri's broadside, so we're going to utilize the AP. You're going to want to aim for superstructure and upper belts. Depending on the battleship you're shooting at, HE is always a valid choice, especially with those 203 millimeter guns. But you can see we're chunking 5K damage of less healable damage than the HE, which can it does have the option to shatter, but you can see only 1800 damage with a few of those HE penetrations here. So HE or AP is the correct choice on the broadside. As you can see, we are now targeted and we actually turned in. We were waiting for his shot, and what that does is it usually, you hear me say it often on stream, is I tell them to hit the brakes and they'll fly right by, because people are predicting that you're going to be sailing in a straight line, at least for the most part. Most of this player base is just, yeah. But you can see that both of those battleships and the other ship we had, that New Orleans, is now gone. So now it is a 3v2. The good news is this Atlantico has preserved most of his health, abandoning his flank. So we're sitting, in a decent situation here. On top of that, we gained the position we were talking about. We now have this island cover, and we are able to shoot both this Helena and Missouri for free. Now, unfortunately, we won't be able to sit behind this island for too long. You can see we are still down on points. So we need to get the kill on this Missouri and keep the Atlantico alive. And that is when we noticed the Amagi pop up, that Amagi that was on our flank, and repositioned. Just a quick side note, chasing that Amagi would have been a losing play, especially in a ship, such as the Baltimore, or any ship other than maybe a destroyer, really. If that ship wants to kite, you let him, but you are always aware of his position. Here we pop out knowing that we're able to secure this kill on the Missouri. Not essential that we secure this kill, but if you actually pay attention, we've, based on the kills we missed, we already would have had a Kraken with the Friesland and that mines. But all of a sudden, I look at the Atlantico and I say, what the hell happened to all of your health? He probably got crossfired by that Amagi or shot by the Iowa, or the Missouri, rather. But it doesn't matter, because we need to work our way into the ACAP and either live or kill this Amagi. And unfortunately, the Amagi pushes in here, and we decide to go ahead and shoot. He targets us, and this is what we're talking about with that vertical dispersion. The Japanese have some pretty decent vertical dispersion, and we turn in, and he aims really well, and you can see I'm just frustrated with that shot. The Japanese have some pretty staggered vertical dispersion, which is actually good on shots like that. So I honestly probably could have kept sailing broadside, and it would have been better. But regardless, here we do have this Atlantico using a lot of his secondaries, which is good. We are chunking this Amagi really well. Here we're trying to get a fire and, again, just present as small of a target as possible. That shot we got a little bit luckier with, but also we didn't, because we angled in, presenting a smaller target for that dispersion to be able to hit. And here is actually what tells me that this Amagi is a good player. We have been dark for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds now, so we have not been spotted, but he shoots and hits us anyway. You can see I'm like, whoa, this guy might be a little goated with the sauce. A blind fire like that is usually representative of a player who is not a potato, and his score is a perfect example of that. This Amagi actually was one of the only players on the enemy team as well to think about positioning and angles and things like that. We are in the cap trying to, influence the points, but if our Atlantico goes down, we're probably going to go down as well due to the fantastic shots on the Amagi. And that is when we talked about earlier, all of the health we saved at the beginning, we were able to use it now. Now, I'm not saying it was the most effective use of our health. You can clearly see losing all of that health in a very short amount of time is not the most ideal, but it is better than taking a massive salvo in the beginning and we would have been dead right now. Here we're playing a little cheeky island game. We're hitting the bow of his ship. You can see mostly overpens, but a few pens for beautiful chunk damage. This Amagi got a little bit angsty. He does fire here. Most of those shells were ghost shells. I only got overpenned once, you can see. Live by RNG, die by RNG. We only got one overpen on that salvo, and we are able to take out that Amagi as we go. That's right, I'm better. So a GG's to our team, sort of, not really, for at least living past the 7-minute mark. But if you are a player with some knowledge, you are able to massively influence the game. So a GG to that Amagi and that Missouri as well. It's usually, we talked about it in yesterday's video, there's generally only 1 or 2 players per game who have any sort of clue what's going on, but you just have to do the best you can. We know that wargaming isn't going to change much, but again, talking about the principles trying to teach here, the core principles of cruiser play, especially radar cruiser play, is getting close to islands, utilizing island cover, and islands near caps more so. On top of that, radaring and shooting at destroyers, and then seeing what your team needs. Analyzing the minimap, analyzing the battle, seeing, okay, all my team is flowing one way. I need to go away from them. And it is so frustrating when people follow me sometimes. Like, get away from me. But getting away from your team, creating a crossfire, and then just finishing out the game. Do we need a finishing kill? Do we need a finishing cap? Do I need to go guns dark, etc.? But that is the kind of the core principles of cruiser play, trying to help the community. You know, I put out that video yesterday, not to harm the community, but just to let you guys know my thoughts. And 99% of you pretty much agreed. But again, there's always going to be that one outlier. So regardless, here is an informational, educational video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys think. Aaron out. Love you guys. Have a great day. Peace.